Sounds good. Thank you, Matt, and thank you for the opportunity to present here today. And just to clarify for our friends over at the US, there's a difference between European markets, electricity markets, and US markets. In the US market, you have vertically integrated utilities that produce and distribute the energy, whereas in Europe, you have independent generators and independent energy suppliers who buy that energy and distribute it retail to households and businesses. And over the past year, we spoke to a number of energy suppliers in Europe, which face three main problems. So a low profitability and a low margin model that depends on just selling electricity and issuing a bill at the end of the month, which then leads to low customer loyalty and high churn because of the lack of differentiator between competitors. But more importantly,
one quick question, Giannis. Do you think your screen is sharing? Because it's not.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no,
you don't need to. It's all good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And the third main point is that energy suppliers today are missing the technology they need that's designed specifically to support business model for the energy transition centered around energy devices like electric vehicles, heat pumps, and batteries. So our team originally set out to build their own smart energy supplier before deciding to build a platform that all energy suppliers need to deliver smart energy services that can drive new high margin revenue and customer stickiness. And our founding team combines expertise in the implementation of data and machine learning platforms, having worked at McKinsey AI and Palantir, the development of digital products from Meta and Bloomberg New Energy, finance and business development and corporate finance from Deloitte, as well as a deep understanding of energy market to deliver this foundational platform for energy suppliers. So what is Electryone's product? We're developing a platform that enables energy suppliers to provide smart energy services by connecting their customers' energy devices like electric vehicles, heat pumps, and home batteries, and optimizing their energy use to maximize customer bill savings and the amount of renewable energy consumed. For example, by scheduling the electric vehicle to charge overnight and aggregating those very same devices into a virtual power plant that earns revenue by providing grid balancing services to the grid. And let's look at an example. So with an electric vehicle, the supplier's customers can connect their electric vehicles onto a platform through the supplier's mobile app with just a few simple clicks without any additional hardware having to be installed within the home. And once connected, we automatically schedule those electric vehicles to charge when electricity prices are cheaper and greener. So that's the optimization part. And when the grid needs relief, we turn off EV charging for a few minutes. So that's providing grid services. So our platform operates this network of electric vehicles as if they were a single large energy device called the virtual power plant that can reduce its consumption in return for compensation when demand exceeds supply in the grid, because the alternative is for the grid operator to pay expensive fossil fuel power plants that use natural gas to ramp up their supply of energy instead. So our platform is our platform's impact is a triple bottom line in action: profit, people, planet. By partnering with Electryone, energy suppliers can unlock new high margin revenue streams built around these energy assets. They can help their customers reduce their energy bill, but more importantly, they replace fossil fuel power plants with these sustainable virtual power plants that consist of millions of home energy devices. So by building this digital infrastructure to support sustainable VPPs, we envision becoming one of the catalysts for a 100% renewable energy future. And in terms of how far along we are with our progress, we developed our MVP, which is a platform and a white label app that can remotely connect and optimize the charging of electric vehicles based on end user preferences. And we're integrating more devices onto our platform, such as heat pumps, smart thermostats, solar inverters, and batteries, as well as developing our AI-powered VPP engine over the next 12 months.
1 minute warning.
And we are close to having our first pilot going live in Q3 with one of the largest, one of the top 10 suppliers in Spain. And we're engaging in conversations with other suppliers across Europe, including the UK, Netherlands, and other countries for additional pilots. And we will seek to enter the US market in 2025, and we see Texas as the natural entry point for us, given the similarities between the Texas market and the European markets. So to wrap up, we see Electryone as becoming the go-to residential VPP platform for any energy supplier or utility that wants to reimagine how they engage with customers that have decentralized energy assets, while they also become a critical part of creating the sustainable decentralized grids of the future.
Time is up. How much are you guys raising?
So we're wrapping up our first angel money now around 400K. Okay,
and while I bring the other investors in, just one quick question. Why pitch without a pitch deck?
Because I have a pitch deck that takes 15 minutes to go through, so I thought I might as well wing it and then have you all focus on what I'm saying instead of some nice pictures that I put together.
Okay. It would make it a little easier for me personally, but maybe that's just me. Juliana, do you want to take things away?
Sure. Yeah. I think I'll start with one or two questions and then pass it off to Moritz and some of the other investors. But, I think the first thing is, how are you guys in terms of your production process? Are you guys doing most of your production in-house, or how are you kind of combining these pieces together to essentially service your customers?
So we're building a full stack technology platform that's from the supplier and everything's built internally, all the way from that API connection to the electric vehicle down to connecting to the grid system and the grid markets. So it's an end-to-end platform. It's like a trading platform that once you buy that platform and offer it to your customers, we take care of our machine learning, takes care of everything from connecting the asset, optimizing the asset, identifying grid balancing opportunities, and then executing and verifying that trade, that flexibility, that energy you sell to the market.
Great, thanks. And then I think my other question is, so it looks like you're starting mainly in Europe, is that correct? And then you're eventually scaling to other countries. As part of that kind of timeline, how are you guys looking to kind of scale up people on your team? So what's your headcount currently?
So we're a very young startup. We only started in November 2022. And right now it's the two founders, one software engineer and myself. And we're looking to increase headcount aggressively over the next 24 months. And the majority of our headcount will be software engineers as we seek to scale first within Europe, but then obviously to the US market and maybe Australia, Canada, and other emerging markets that seek to adopt, let's say, a grid structure that's more forward-looking and is designed for a decentralized energy grid.
Great, thank you. I'll pass it off to Moritz so I don't take all the questions here.
Yeah, thank you. No worries. Cool. Thanks for pitching. I have a question on the customer. So I understood the main customer is the utility companies, and if that's correct, what's the number one reason why they need you, or what's the key USP you're selling to them? So
there's two key reasons why suppliers get excited when they speak to us. One is that they need to move away from the low margin commodity model of just selling electricity, and more importantly, decouple their profitability from your consumption. And the best way to do that is by building services around those decentralized energy assets and opening new ways to generate new high margin revenue streams, let's say, that goes beyond just selling electricity. And that's something that every supplier is looking to do as a way to differentiate themselves from the competition. And the second aspect is that a lot of energy suppliers are not tech-enabled industries. So the revolution we saw that happen in cleantech 10 years ago hasn't happened in the energy supply space yet, but it's about to. But still, so these energy suppliers need software solutions that can be deployed and managed without having a highly technical staff internally. And that's what our platform is designed to do, to abstract that complexity away from suppliers without having them hire an army of engineers in order to operate the platform. So one of our go-to-market selling points is that we're building a no-code platform that can be operated with just the stuff that the supplier already has in-house.
Okay, great. And then also the way I understood your business model is multiple layers. So basically you start with helping the private users steering their electric car, charging, for example, and turning that off and on. Then there would also need to be some flexible tariffs included. And then on a later stage, as far as I understood, you want to pool then the demand and build like virtual power plants. Could you elaborate on maybe the core steps that are needed along the business model? Like what needs to happen?
Absolutely. And now, Matt, now you say 5 minutes can be a challenge when we're teaching our concept, let's say, but Moritz raised a very good question. So the idea, the first part of the platform is to find a way to incentivize those EV owners to onboard their asset onto our platform. And how do you do that? You work together with the supplier to offer them a tariff potentially that incentivizes them to automate the charging of the electric vehicle, maybe overnight when electricity prices are cheaper, or some other form of flexible tariff. And that's the first layer of incentive that you give to the customers so they can make that connection onto your platform by shifting the usage around to lower their energy bill, which then that connection opens a much bigger door to provide grid balancing services. Once you're connected to an asset and you're optimizing its consumption, you can then aggregate those optimized assets into a much bigger pool that can provide those grid balancing services. So the first layer is optimizing for bill savings that enables the next technology layer, which is aggregating those assets together and selling flexibility or energy back to the grid. It's two sides of the same coin. Unless you have the incentive to bring the asset on board, you won't be able to provide grid balancing services.
Good. Thank you. I would also pass it on to Niels.
Awesome. Thanks. Yeah, I guess two questions. One is, if I understand correctly, you're all about like balancing the grid at the moment. Does your product roadmap foresee that you will be able to onboard renewable energy generation as well, so distributed assets?
So we see that there's a lot of software already that deals with large scale generation, but our solution focus is a residential first solution. So every house is going to have a solar panel, hopefully in the next 10 to 20 years. But a solar panel by itself, it's not a flexible source of energy. It generates whenever it wants to generate energy, when there's a sun. But if you combine a solar panel with a battery, then you truly have a flexible distributed energy generation source that you can aggregate and trade and provide grid balancing. So the way we're positioning ourselves, we're focusing on the residential market, and we're mobilizing all assets that can be used to provide those grid balancing services, including consumers, so solar with batteries, as well as electric vehicles to grid technology, and heat pumps and smart thermostats, and then other devices.
Okay, understood. Yeah, that was the question, whether you could use residential solar panels as well. What kind of density of consumers do you need, like in a given building block or road, to use your solution so that it actually works?
So when it comes to creating a residential virtual power plant, there's a minimum requirement. You need at least 500 electric vehicles to be allowed to bid into European balancing market. So that's the minimum requirement. But as you grow, there's network effects. The bigger your pool of assets is, the more balancing energy you can provide to the grid, which means the more revenue you can generate for your pool of assets. And that can bring more and more network effects as you grow. But there is a minimum requirement, but it's all upside from there.
Okay, and then last question, if I may. So what is your outlook on that minimum requirement, or how many vehicles you have on your platform at the moment? What's the strategy of getting to the 500?
So initially, so we're only getting started, right? So we only have like 20 electric vehicles that we're working with right now, and we're building the VPP engine over the next 8 12 months. We've only built optimization platform for now. But the way we initially thought about going B2C, but then we realized that if you want to scale, you need to sell your software to the entities that own the relationship with Europe's 300 million households. And that's the energy suppliers that already spend billions building a brand with those consumers. And that's why we're going B2B, because you can convert a large enough or a small number of suppliers with a large enough customer base, then you truly have a large pool, a very large pool of VPP and assets that you can help balance the grid and replace those natural gas powered heater plants.
In theory, if there's enough companies like you that are doing similar things, can that make it so you all never reach that critical scale?
Well, I hope more companies get created that do what we do, because it's necessary for that to happen if we ever want to reach 100% renewable energy grid. But the amount of assets coming online is huge, right? There's estimates that say there's going to be more than 300 million energy devices in Europe alone, and globally there's going to be more than 4 billion devices around the world by 2050. So the market is going to become huge. And let's not forget that as more and more renewable energy enters the grid, so will volatility in the grid increase. So the need for all these assets to participate is going to grow exponentially as well. So there's a lot of dynamics here that are basically saying this is going to be a big market, and there's room for more players to come on board with innovative ways to do what we do.
And what's the biggest risk you see in the business?
The biggest challenge that we see is that we're working with conservative industries like our utilities and energy suppliers. And although their world is being disrupted, you still need to sell to those conservative players. And that's a challenge. And that's something that we've done in our past careers for the past 10 years, which is selling to conservative industries. So that risk and challenge that we see is also an opportunity for us.
And then I guess my last question before we move things over to next founder of the night would be, why are you doing this?
That's a question that, like, because I don't have a background in energy, right? I was always fascinated by the impact that energy can have, whether it's nuclear or fusion or renewable energy. And I guess the reason I decided to do something as challenging as this is because the impact is huge. We need to get to net zero by 2050. And the only way to get to net zero is by getting rid of fossil fuels from our electricity grid. And the only way to do it is by creating residential VPPs that can mobilize all this sustainable energy within homes to do exactly that. And that's the main driver of why we took on this huge challenge.